Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Welsh Republic Podcast, episode 156 today. And I'm here with my guest, Mira. How are you doing today, Mira? Is everything going well with you?
Hello, Welsh. Yes, everything is great. Thank you for having me over.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you. So you're the head of the Foundation of Battle of Injustice. That's really cool, some of the work you're doing over there. But before we get into that, how's your day been, Mira? What have you been up to? Anything much, and how's the weather where you're at the moment?
Everything is great. It's up to 30 degrees Celsius here, so day is perfect.
You're in Russia, is that correct?
Correct.
You know, wow, 30 degrees. It must be. Well, I mean, it is summer there, like, what is it very warm in your area? Because I know some parts of Russia can get very, very warm.
It is super hot today, as it's been the last week. So, yeah.
Man, I'll tell you what, Mira, I've always wanted to go to Russia, especially Moscow, Crimea would be pretty cool. I've always wanted to go to a lot of the Islamic states, like in Russia, like the Islamic provinces. Such a fascinating history Russia is. It's got such a fascinating history the country does, and it's such a shame a lot of Westerners, really don't understand that. Mira, what would you say in Russian folklore? Like, what would you say is your favorite thing about Russian mythology, and like your favorite thing about like traveling around Russia that you really love the most, that really you enjoy?
Everything, actually, because everywhere where you would go, it would be different. Russia is a huge country where you can experience different temperatures and different types of flora and fauna, and it's like traveling to different countries almost, but you're still inside the same country. And I love people, of course, because place to place they are also different. They have their own traditions and cultures and mentalities. So if you come and when you come to Russia, you definitely are going to enjoy it, and you definitely will find a place for yourself because, as I said, it's so different that there is no way you will not find a place where you will feel like home.
It is absolutely, and I've heard a lot of things from especially foreigners. Like, there's a girl called Sasha Russia, and I think it's called Sasha Meets Russia. Have you heard of her? She was recently a girl who had a YouTube channel taken down because she was showing the positive side of Russia. And there are also other people, foreigners who live in Russia, and they love it. And it's funny, Mira, because a lot of people who live in Russia say it's much more safer than a lot of places in Western Europe. It's much more, it's getting better and better, especially how Russia's just taken, over as the world's biggest fourth economy and people's purchasing power. That's just, it's remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable.
Yes, it definitely is. And I heard about Sasha and I saw her videos as well. I didn't know that her YouTube was taken down. It's a shame. I mean, like, there are so many restrictions on YouTube, and you will get strikes for your channel will get strikes if someone says something, that goes against of YouTube politics, which is the same agenda of the majority of Western countries now. I mean, like, what's so harmful if Sasha is showing how
I
life
know.
in Russia is? It has nothing to do with politics, but unfortunately for owner of YouTube or whoever runs YouTube, it does have something to do with politics, because showing that life is good in Russia even after the sanctions, showing how shelf in the
Mm.
stores are full of different products, foreign products as well, that there is no problems, no issue, how clean it is, how crimeless it is. Definitely is not what the Western politicians want to see their citizens, because they want to feed them what they're trying to feed them in the mainstream media, that Russia is going down, that Russia making Russia look like evil, and so on. So whoever is, actually showing something opposite and different is making them angry, and they don't want that information to go to their people.
So, Mira, Mira, tell me about yourself. So, this organization that you're head of, the head of the Foundation to Battle Injustice, you guys, so you do a lot of work for human rights, exposing like human trafficking that goes on, and like that you won't hear from the Western media, like especially that goes on in like UK, Israel, like United States, and also Ukraine too. So tell me about it. How long have you been working in that organization for? Tell me about like some of the, like what was the story that led you to that organization? Yeah.
Uh, I became a head of the Foundation to Battle Injustice in June 2021. And yes, we deal with a lot of injustice worldwide. And we basically address human rights violations, support civil activists. We provide assistance and support to victims of judicial injustice, police brutalities, political persecution. We deal with human trafficking as well. We fight it, and with different type of war crimes and other crimes. And what led to this is a good question, because in 2018 I was arrested in Finland and extradited to the United States on trumped up charges, where I was not able to have a fair trial, and under the pressure I had to sign documents where I admitted my guilt, and after that, I was sentenced to 2.5 years in federal prison. But even when my time was up, I still was not released, and then U.S. just kept me. U.S. representatives kept me in prisons, in different prisons, for another 4 months. So in total, I was in 11 different prisons, three of which were in Finland and 8 in United States. In US, it was jails, federal prisons, and detention centers for immigrants. And I was able to see what is going on there, how people and prisoners are being treated. And, you know, it's not only Russian citizens who were treated that same way. The same way were treated people from South and Central America, from other parts of Europe, and even from North America. So U.S. penitentiary system treats the same way even their own citizens, when they don't have rights, when they treated like slaves, when they have lack of medical care, lack of food, because it was during the COVID times, during pandemic times. So the borders of the states were locked, and we were fed like once a day, and likely if you have a hot meal, that could be chips, or something like, it was just horrible. And they would keep people in a cell for 23 hours a day, and sometimes you don't even get out of your cell every day for that hour. Sometimes they would keep you for 2 or 3 days without leaving that cell. So people are not able to make a phone call to their families. They are not able to take a shower, and it's a COVID, I'm reminding you. So when I came back, that subject was bothering me so much, that people in the 21st century are treated this type of way, that I just couldn't stay away from this issue. And I decided to become a head of the Foundation to Battle Injustice, that at that time was dealing mostly with the police, judicial, and prison outrage. Well, and after I've seen more injustice and more crimes all over the world, we started going to expanding our work, to the different topics. But yes, that was, that experience was a start for me to think different and look different on how the world is run and who it run by, and how people are treated, how they become prisoners of the big political games.
Maria, I saw a Twitter post that you posted, which is very interesting, where it says, talking about exposing, of course, America is we all know the prison system in America is one big business. A lot of like, especially how black people in America in the prison system have to experience like systematic racism, which has always been a problem. But speaking about the American political system, you're writing here. You said like about the concern about prisons in England and Wales, and also in France too. So tell us about that. Like, what did you discover? Like learning about the disastrous conditions about England and Wales, and like how would you compare the prison system like in Russia, comparing that to like England or Wales or America? Go ahead.
Well, comparing Russia, for example, we do have an interesting institution. I'm just trying to translate the name of it. Just a second, please, because it's interesting. But basically, just a moment. We're gonna have to cut that part out so that way
I
won't.
I was also, take your time with searching that. I was also just going to mention in the article, it says here, prison crisis in England and Wales has reached an all-time high, and it says here that 33%. Well, I'm not surprised that that's as a Welshman to hear that. That makes me furious to hear about that, how that's happening in England and Wales. That's so messed up.
Yes, it so is. I mean, like, it's not only US that has this type of problems. Poland has, France has, UK does as well. And comparing with Russia, for example, we do have public monitoring commission that, representatives of which would go to prison, and they will be allowed to go in and check the cells, speak to the prisoners, and make a report, make a statement about the conditions that they live in, if they have been tortured, how they have been fed, again, medical care and other conditions, which is important, because I believe when you have a prison system, you also have to have a public monitoring commission, because who else is going to control the conditions inside the prison? Not the prison administration, definitely. It's the same if you would complain on the work of judge to the same judge. How is he or she is going to be objective about it? So, and that what makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. I also saw here, what other facts do you think people should be aware of the prison system in Britain and America from what you've researched about that from the article you studied when studying England and Wales prison system?
I mean, aware is, I'm not sure if it's the right word. It's complicated, it's complicated question, in a way of, once you get into the system, it seems like there is no way out. You know what I mean? Like, there is no way to prove your innocence, for example, or prove minority role, because it's not the justice that leads so-called justice system. It's the interests of prosecutor, interests of Ministry of Justice, to spend less money, to make sure not to go to the trial because it's going to cost so much money, and they need to save that government money. So, people basically don't have rights. The lawyer costs so much, and if it's the public defender, then you won't be, able actually to get any work out of him or her, to search for the evidence on your behalf, and so on. So, it's very complicated. Once I was in jail in Alexandria, Virginia, I was there with Chelsea Manning. And if you remember, she was the part, well, back then, she was a Bradley Manning, and she sent the documents to Julian Assange, who spent over 12 years in prison, because of that. And so Chelsea told me very interesting information. She said that on a regular basis, average citizen in United States commits 5 up to 6 felonies a day. So if the government actually wants to get you for something, they always have a reason to do so. So I guess the main thing is uh, to live a common peaceful life, and not to cross anybody's road. But it's very difficult these days, because if you disagree with what's happening in your country, if you see injustice again, if you see how your country spends money instead of on the inside countries issues like education, drugs, crime, and so on, but sends money out, for example, to weaponize Ukraine and to deal with the problems overseas, how can you stay away? So basically, every disagreed citizen is at risk to go into jail or prison. But then what else can they do? Like, to my opinion, if I was a citizen of any of those countries, I would be thinking about changing the system itself. Because, like, if we will take, for example, if we will look at the United States prison system and legal system in general. It was created over 100 years ago. The time has changed. People got rights. They want, like, I think was it 13th Amendment, or maybe I'm wrong with the number, but where it says that the slavery there is no more slavery in the United States, except the prisoners can be treated as slaves. But I mean, like, this is 21st century. Nobody can be treated as a slave anymore. Only human traffickers treat people as slaves. So it is absolutely, in need. Like, if I will be facing such issues in my country, I will be thinking about change of this system, and it's complicated.
Mm. What would you say has been, out of your experience when like dealing with human trafficking stories, like helping exposing it, what would you say is the most upsetting, like most disturbing story that you've actually dealt with, that really, people should be wary of, that really broke your heart and you said, oh my gosh, this is terrible, and like with the West not telling anything about it? Go ahead.
It's children that are involved in human trafficking. When they become victims of human trafficking. Um, One of the stories was a few years ago, when the special military operation just started, and one of the orphans houses for special children's, um, they decided to go to Spain. They were invited there, and the custody right was under one of the employees' name, and she took children through Poland to Spain. In Poland, the military plane was already waiting on them, and they were taken to Spain. And to just to admit, which will be important, there are 5 countries in this world that will not register immigrant children from Ukraine when they cross the border, and it's Poland, it's Spain, it's United Kingdom, Czech Republic, and Slovakia. So this is the countries that usually the human trafficking is going through these days. And when the children were taken to Spain, of course, the interests was absolutely different, and the custody was taken from the woman, and it was 85 children, and 8 of them got missing. And when we made that story public, the social services of Spain made an official statement, public statement, that 8 of those children, they are not missing. They are over 18 now, and they can go anywhere where they want. But apparently, social services didn't know that we had copies of the documents with the dates of birth of those children, and none of them were 18. And I will remind you that they are all special children, special kids. So that means that they are under the custody till the rest of their lives, and This was bizarre. And then when we started tracking, like some of the children, where did they go? We were able to track them all the way to Argentina. And in Argentina, they had a website in Spanish and English. And again, when we made that story public, they deleted English page, which had no absolutely, like, it was ridiculous, because people still can see the Spanish version, and even if you delete anything from the internet, it will leave traces over there. You can just like recop it. And we were able to see that they had a program where they would give children from Ukraine for 3 up to 4 weeks for $3,500. So they were renting children out, because like when I was talking to some of the people, they were telling me like, well, maybe that's donation. And I said, donation, it's something willful. Donation, it's something you can donate as much as you can. But when you see that there is a child and there is a specific amount of money, that's already a deal. It's a sale deal. So we still were not able to find out what happened to those 8 children, and it's disturbing what actually can happen to children during the human trafficking, because we've we've seen cases when children were used as sex slaves, for the prostitution, as offline, as online for pornography, as in front of the camera, same as behind the camera. Children are used in different crime scams, children also used for the slave work, children used for the organ sales. Children are also used for the begging on the streets, for example. So there's so many ways how human traffickers are trying to get benefits out of using little kids. That this is horrific. And when we were investigating how the process, how it actually happens, this is also crazy, because in general human trafficking happens where there is like a military conflict, for example, or a pandemic, or any other kind of situation, emergency situation in a country. That's where you will see the human trafficking raising up. And in Ukraine, for example, they would send, there were like two groups of people they would call White Angels and Phoenix. And what they did one of the years before the Christmas, they went to the town and they said that they would like to bring Christmas gifts to children. So all parents who have children must come with their children or
That
with the
is
birth.
very creepy. That
It
is
is,
very creepy.
yeah, come with their children or with the birth certificates, to get those gifts. So when people were coming, family were coming with the children or with the birth certificates, those people who were given those gifts, they were taking pictures of the child or the birth certificate, and also asking them where do they live and where do they hide during the shelling. So 2 weeks later, the same people already in military uniform came back, and they had a map, where they had marked the addresses where those families live or hide, and they went straight to the places where to the children that they were interested in, and they were just picking them up by force, taken away from their parents. And it's crazy, like we were able to speak with the witnesses of this crime. We were able to speak with 11-year-old girl who were running away for and hiding for 10 months from White Angels, who were trying to look for her and tell her that her mother is dead and that she has relatives in Germany and that they're going to take her there. And then they would go to parents and tell them, like, look, we can take your child to the safer place. And if parents would not agree, they would either take children by force or tell them, like, you can come with your child. They will go with the child, and like they will be thrown out of the car, on the way somewhere. So it's just like brutal what is happening, for real brutal. Like I can't even imagine, what people truly experience. Like when I talk to them, I understand that there is no way I or anybody else can fully, for 100%, understand what those people and children went through or going through. And the hardest part is how can we help them? Because, for example, with that orphan house that I told you about, uh, that town at the moment when children were taken was under Ukrainian control. And by the law, those children are Ukrainian citizens. Because when we tried to do something about it, that's the response we got. And when the lady who had custody on them, when she was taking them to Spain, contacted the Ministry of Education, because that's who she worked for, because she worked for that orphan house, she was told not to make the story public, not to go to anyone, because Spain and Ukraine are allies against Russia, and they're not going to ruin this relationship over those children. So they just being left, those children are left aside and no one cares. And people who care, we cannot do much about it.
It's unbelievable, Mira, especially when you mentioned there, it's terrible, to hear the story, whether it's in Ukraine, especially like what's going on in Israel and how like Israel has had a massive problem with sex trafficking too. There's also a big problem in Albania. There's also a big problem going on in Congo and Sudan, and especially Syria, and especially how NATO, the European Union, BlackRock, Vanguard, the United States government, the Vatican, how they've had this sex trafficking operation that's been going on for so long. It's unbelievable. And the fact, how I heard in one of your interviews where you mentioned how a lot of people I think it was one of your interviewers said to you how NATO is full of pedophiles, especially when you look at the WEF and like the Zionists who control a lot of the West. It's unbelievable. It's like, it makes me wonder, why is there not a mass protest against it? Why are people in the United States not going out of the White House and protesting this? Or like this is sex trafficking is one of the worst problems in the world. And I think it's so good what you're doing fighting this problem, because it's exposing this. It's great what you're doing. You're doing God's work, and when I see this, it just, it makes me so angry, that like, it's just, but speaking that, Mira, speaking of that, so you've done a lot of great work exposing like what goes on in Lugansk, Donetsk, and Donbass. So tell me about that, like with what's happened, like from like what was going on with Donbass and Donbass, Lugansk, and those countries, which are now a part of Russia, which they always wanted to be part of Russia. Tell me the story about those places, like what you experienced going to those places, like the like where civilians and like children, Ukrainian children, are being killed, and like how much like does the Zelensky regime have a connection with it? Like how is he involved with all that sex trafficking that goes on in there? And also, tell us about the story about that girl. Before I finish the question, what's her name again? That girl who you talked to before, the one who's in Lugansk. What's her name again?
Faina.
Her experience. Like, tell us about her experience and tell us about the story about like what you experienced there, and also tell us like tell us when those parts that were liberated by Russia, tell us like how Russia is making those parts better, and how did like the citizens of Donbass and Lugansk feel when the Russians came in to liberate them and save them from all of that stuff, from the neo-Nazis, bombing them and stuff and shelling them. Go ahead.
Well, I will answer first on the question about why people, knowing what's happening with the pedophilia, are not doing anything, in the United States. uh, it's a fear because everyone fear and not knowing. Some of the people do not know what's actually happening because mainstream media is working hard to hide it, and the people that know about it unfortunately right now still in fear, in fear going into the penitentiary system, in fear of changing something to the worst. But you will see the small regress, small degradation step by step every year in the United States, but it's still happening slowly. But people are scared of the radical changes, even if it's changes to the best. They still, it's just the way how humans are. And answering your other question, what I was impressed with going to Donbass is that I didn't see that many children outside. Like actually for the like for example, one of the times I went there, for the whole day I didn't see a single child on the street except for Faina, because she came she came to meet with me. Other than that, children are not walking on the streets, because it's not safe, because the peaceful people being shelled, schools being shelled. It's not military objects. There are no military standing there or hiding there. There are schools where they had classes. Right now is a summer break, but during the rest of the year there are classes, there are teachers, and they being shelled and murdered. And there is alley called the Angels Alley, was as a memorial for all the children that been murdered for all this almost 10 years. And so that was the biggest surprise to me, that no children outside. Because in other parts of Russia, you will see adults and children walking and talking and going to do their business and whatever. So this is a huge contrast that you notice there at first. Of course, ruined buildings. Of course, there are still some signs of Ukraine, on the roads. You would see signs that are on Ukrainian language, for example. And I don't know, in general, like, I'm the person who's very sensitive to everything and nature as well. Like, you go there, like, when you go there, you feel how nature is crying from having, all these wounds on it, again, from the shelling, all these wounds from the human blood, just raised on the ground. It's very, very, um, you know that's where the world splits, where there is I guess no space for diplomacy at the moment, no gray colors. There is only black and white, life or death, good or bad. That's where you feel the life at the most. And people are from the liberated cities and towns. They're happy because they are tired of living, in between, in the middle. They are not. Ukraine doesn't really care about them. That's what their military shows. That's what Zelensky shows, and they want to be with the country that care for their citizens, that care about what's happening in their city, that care about their social packages and stuff. Like, if we will, for example, look at Mariupol, that was completely destroyed at the time, how now it looks like all the buildings being built up and renewed. They they grow up like mushrooms after the rain. You know how fast it's been built. The roads are being built, new schools being built. Not only adults but children I talk to, and they are so glad that they can go back to school. The only issue right now is, and concern is that school won't be shelled again, because that's the biggest problem. And the interesting part, like when Ukraine and satellites are destroying just the peaceful people and children, and they're trying to keep them in fear first of all, because that's what it is. It's not even the idea of I guess it's not an idea of murdering many civilians as much as just to put fear into in between civilians. Oh, terrorists do the same thing, you know. Their main goal is not to kill as many as possible, but to put fear into human head, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to put fear in the parents' head that children won't go to schools, won't socialize and stuff like that. But it is actually opposite. Children are still studying online. They are uh, even more clever than, you know, children in the peaceful areas of the country, I would say. They seem like adults locked up in a child body. Like, I talked to my goddaughter Faina, and she is a complete adult that's sitting in a 14-year-old girl body. And so I guess if that's the plan, to, you know, to completely destroy one generation or two generations, education wise, mentally wise, physically wise, the plan went gone wrong, you know, because everything is just going opposite. And about Faina, few years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, she wrote to me on social networks, asking me if, telling me that she's my colleague because she's also a writer. And I wrote a book after my experience, two books. And we started talking, and she told me that she is on this Ukrainian kill list called Mira Terada, peacemaker.
Yes, I know that kill list is just outrageous.
It
Like,
is.
seriously, if I was a president, sorry for interrupting you. If I
It's
was a
okay.
presidential leader, I would sanction Ukraine for that. I'd say, why do you have a 15-year-old girl, I think she was 15 at the time, on the kill list? That is absolutely ridiculous. Like, oh, it's mental. Keep going, like you were saying.
She's been on that list since she was 12, and all what she
Oh
did,
my God,
yeah,
12 years old?
yes, and all
Wow.
what she did was she recorded a video message to the UN, asking them. It was even before a special military operation. She asked the UN to stop Ukraine from shelling them because children deserve peaceful life and sky above their heads. How crazy this is. And for that, she was put on the kill list. And when she told me that, I was wondering if there are any other kids. So we did investigation, and we found out that there were like over 300 children on that list.
You kidding
100.
me?
No, I'm serious.
No way.
Yes, and they're
Oh
not
my
they
God,
are
Ali.
not only Russian children or Ukrainian children. They're children from different countries. And guess what they got on that list for? Because some of them went on vacation to Crimea, you know, and some of them for their Victory Day were wearing that, children uniform to celebrate Victory Day. And so, but for that, their pictures were exposed, their personal data was exposed. Like, if you would
Yeah.
look at it, it looks like a pedophile menu, you know, where you can pick the child based on the picture and then look for the personal info. Okay, he or she lives at this address, and here's the links to their social
It's,
network. This is insane. Like, Vaina told me that one day someone came to her house, like unknown person, because he found her address on kill list. And so this
oh
is,
my God. What happened
yes,
to that
this is
person?
on.
Did she call the police on that person, or did she tell that person to go away?
He actually came not with the bad intentions. It was her birthday, so he wanted just to, express his respect to what she's doing and stuff like that. But what if it was opposite? You know,
Yep.
what if it was an enemy? What if it was a pedophile? It could be anyone.
Can you hear
So,
me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I thought we cut out for a second. Oh, that was a bit scary, like we were being hacked because we were talking about this. Like, but keep going, like you're saying, you know?
No, we're okay. And so this is crazy, and I still don't understand existence.
Hello? Can you hear me? Are you all right? Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've lost Maria at the moment. We've lost her on a. Hang on. I'll get her on contact, ladies and gentlemen. I think the connection's a bit loopy at the moment. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to improvise for her because I don't want to be disrespectful. I do want to let her continue her story. To hear about this 500 thing that is going on at the moment is just absolutely crazy. You know, I am so blown away to hear. I'll just wait for her to come back, ladies and gentlemen, to hear that 500 children, you know, are literally, you know, at the moment. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, she's back. So sorry about the improvise. She's back. Hello. Welcome back. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, I think someone might be messing with our feed, or who knows, maybe it's just bad connection. But yeah, like you were saying, as you were mentioning.
So yes, I'm surprised that this website still exists because there are American citizens on it, UK citizens,
Yeah.
and citizens of other countries, and I don't understand how governments of those countries still allow this happen. I mean, because it looks like a double standards, you know. Taking care of one citizen and not taking care of another citizen, you know, it doesn't look right. That's all what I'm saying. And about pedophilia in general, you've seen, I guess, those news several months ago when they being very serious at the UN discussing pedophilia as one of the sex
Yeah.
orientation, which is completely sick,
Yeah,
and I
I
hope the
know
world
that
is
is.
not going down for it.
Germany just made a criminalization where they're actually making lesser punishments for people who are caught with child porn. It's unbelievable. It's unfreaking believable.
That's already the start, you know that, right? It's a start. They are
Oh,
preparing
they're
the
they're gonna
world
try.
that it's going to be legalized.
You know what? I think it's not. I think I have to throw a disagreement with you. I think people are not going to stand for it. I think maybe the West is going to go downhill a bit, but I think Russia and China, they're not going to stand for it. I think the way the world's going, the world is rejecting globalism and stuff, but they are going to try it, but I don't think cultures are going to allow it.
Oh
Sorry,
no, of
Maria.
course not. There are, neither Russia, neither China, neither Brazil, and many African countries, you know, and Asian countries, and many other, like the majority of the world
Yeah,
is not going down for it. And then again, we will have that split world. Like every time you see that the world divides, it brings us closer and closer to the, you know, to
yeah,
the big war, and it's a very dangerous trick. And
it's,
all this about sex and gender topics, it's something that
it's
messes with the
we're
cultural
living.
was the let me finish please.
No,
It's
no,
something that messes with the cultural code, you know, which is way deeper than and way longer than any war, because it's something that sticks on the DNA. That's something that will be taken through decades, through generations, and that's the biggest issue. And that's what the collective quest is trying to do. And you know, when you say that one side of the world will take it and another one will not, that's a bad thing. And our goal is to deliver to that part of the world that wants to accept it, that it's unacceptable.
I totally agree. The West now is becoming a bit like Babylon. It's becoming a bit like Babylon and Weimar Republic. Um, Mira, tell me about this thing called Unit 110. What's the story behind that?
Oh my God, that's another difficult topic because it has something to do with the medical experiments. And so we were able to find out information about this special military medical formation, and it's called Unit Number 110. and it's a formation of armed forces of Ukraine, and they basically conduct banned secret experiments on people. And the victims of these inhumane biological experiments that are made in classified labs, they are Ukrainian citizens. They were not only adults, but they are also children. They are also foreign mercenaries from so-called third world countries. They are also Russian prisoners of war, and the patients were subjected to different medical manipulations that are similar to torture and it was including medical drug testing, frostbite, radiation, electric shocks, and all different kinds of other experiments. And all the experiments are aimed at testing the limits of human body's survivability, because Ukraine is trying to create a new bioweapons, drugs and stimulants for the military people, of course. And this is crazy because it does remind us about those times during the Second World War when the Germany was doing something similar. And there are actually, a lot of similarities between what Ukraine is doing now and the Third Reich was doing back then. And this is again a call out, and a call back brings us back to Nazism and reminds us that neo-Nazism is alive nowadays, but hopefully it will be destroyed.
I think it will be. And not to mention, the Japanese Imperial Army were also doing something even horrific. It was, I think, Unit 1, which was even worse. Even worse. It was just incredibly messed up. You probably heard about that, the Japanese Imperial Army, what they were doing. Mira, speaking of that, as we all know right now, there was a terror attack which was done by, obviously, NATO and the Ukrainian government on Crimea. I mean, rest in peace, the souls of that terror attack. Absolutely horrible, never should have happened. And especially like with what happened in Moscow, with the horrible terror attack that happened, what do you think, in your opinion, in your experience, is going to be like? Because I saw a video where like people were talking about the next big false flag event. I don't think it's going to happen in Russia. But with how it's going, if you were to think about something, what do you think is going to be the next major false flag? Do you think it's going to happen in Europe, where it's going to be like another Islamic terror attack, or do you think it's going to be like a neo-Nazi in Western Europe who attacks a nuclear power plant, or do you think it's going to happen in the United States, where there has been talk of civil war, which has been something, and especially with the empire dying, where many people predicting, the possibility of Donald Trump being assassinated, and not to mention there was a news feed that was done, I think, by CBS News, where that was hacked by Ukrainian, or government feds, where it basically said, we killed the president of. It was a feed that hacked the news feed where it said we killed the president of Iran, and also we tried to kill the Slovakian president, which of course he did die. And another one, and it said, be careful, don't go to a Trump rally. You could, if you do, there's something bad's going to happen because Trump's an enemy of Ukraine. What do you think is going to be the next major event? Do you think it's going to be a terror attack in like Western Europe, or do you think that next major event is going to be like where Donald Trump gets assassinated, like by some crazy far right winger, or do you think that's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? The next big false flag?
Any scenario out of that you just said can happen, unfortunately. But I wish none of it will happen, because every country has a very serious intelligence, and with all the capabilities, the technical capabilities, hopefully it will be prevented, because the victims are always civilians, and that's my main concern. Because as a human rights defender, all what I care are people, that become the victims and prisoners of this big political, military, financial games, as I told you before. And speaking about the terrorist attack that happened in Crimea, the majority of people looking at it actually different than you said. People are not looking at it as Ukraine did it. People are looking deeper at the issue. They're looking at what weapons and whose weapons it was done by. And it was weapons that been delivered by United States, I believe, or some European country. But it's still the weapons that came from the West that gave an opportunity to the AFU to shell civilians that were spending the weekend on the beach. And for the majority of people, it's the West who murdered those civilians, who murdered those children. And and it's unfortunate that the West still delivers those weapons. Unfortunate that they still Ukraine. Speaking about Ukraine, it's not independent country. Every decision that they make, the majority of the decisions, they go and ask about permission, and the fact that it happened, lets us know that it's been approved. This terrorist attack has been approved. The United States, unfortunately, based on this fact, is the country that sponsors terrorism, and that's what it is for us at this moment. And speaking about the situation at Crocus, it was a complete false flag attack because this scenario is not new anymore. It happened decades ago, similar to it, when an argument was supposed to be put in a society to separate, to divide again people and the country. We had the situation in 1991 when the country was divided. USSR was divided on many smaller countries, and now this try happened again. This attempt was made again, but the country stood strong as never before. Nobody got mad about and turned against of Muslims or people from Tajikistan or representatives of other countries that were involved in this terrorist attack. Because actually in Russia, people do use logic, they do use critical mind, and critical thinking, and they fully understand what is happening. They are all mobilized, not only our military mobilized, but civilians are also mobilized. People help the front, people help each other. We know what times we're going through, and we are united more than ever before. I believe even more than during the USSR time, the people inside the country and like our closest allies.
Mira, when you look at Russia on how they counter, like your experience working in Russia and being a human rights organization, and like personally, organization you run, how would you compare Russia when they come to like handling corruption in their legal system? What would you say makes them better than the West at doing it? Like, how would you think that the Russian justice system is more fairer than the West? How is it more democratic, and how does it do a better job at exposing evils in its country than the West does when it comes to defending human rights in Russia, and not just only that, but human rights around the world?
I won't be able to make this comparison due to the fact that I simply work and for the human rights or overseas. We do have our human rights defenders that work inside the country, and that's their work, and my focus is overseas. So this is why, due to the lack of expertise on this topic, I won't be able to compare this.
No, sorry about that. It's a bit of a silly question. Mira, what is your thoughts on Julian Assange? Isn't it great that he's been free? What is your thoughts on that? And how do you think the future of Julian Assange looks? Do you think he's going to be safe, or do you think he's going to be targeted? What do you think about that?
I am very happy that this man, Julian Assange, the fighter for the truth, the person who stood for, you know, stood for what he stood from the beginning. Like he did not break during all these years, even though his family was waiting for him outside. His children, his wife, his father. He still didn't step away from his principles. I'm glad that Julian Assange is a free man now. I did not see the terms of his plea agreement, so it's difficult for me to say what he, uh, what he is allowed to do based on his case. I'm hoping he will remain in journalism and protecting journalism uh, in the future after he recovers. And his case, the only concern I have about this plea agreement is that it will allow Western governments to criminalize journalism now. Because anywhere where there is uh, the precedent law, uh, it will be used against of the journalists to prosecute them, as an example. And that's my main concern. About the Assange's safety, that's my second concern, because I know that United States is administration, not people, but the U.S. administration is very vindictive, and I'm concerned that they may go after him even though after he got the full release. I'm concerned about his safety, well-being, uh, the health-wise, the life-wise. So unfortunately, the history shows us that we can be concerned about it. But I'm very happy that it's finally, at least the prison fight, the legal fight is over for him for now.
So, Mira, before we finish up, one last question. How do you see the future of Russia going forward, like with the future of your country, Russia going forward? And what else, last thing, would you like to say before we end this interview?
Um, I was always thinking positive, and I think that there's a bright future waits for Russia ahead, for Russia and its allies, because Russia right now, for many, looks like the country that can be, um, that leads uh, in front of other countries and with other countries by the side, um, and helps to improve and save traditional values, which is very important for many. The economic wise, we see the stability and growth as well. The sanctions wise, we see that no matter what sanctions were applied, they only harm the governments that apply those sanctions. And I think it's a good future, it's a bright future, it's stable future. It's future in general, because right now we are talking about something existential, and Russia does have that future. And to our audience, I wish to have mercy, to use logic and critical thinking, and I wish everyone hope, faith, and love inside them. Just general human love to other human beings, and stick to the truth. That's all that matters.
Well, Mira, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on my show. It was an honor. I think you're doing an amazing job exposing a lot of this, human trafficking that's going on. I think what you're doing with as being the head of the Foundation to Battle Injustice is absolutely brilliant. God bless you. You're doing, humanity a great favor. You're making the world a better place with what you do. I really respect you from the bottom of my heart for that. Really, and as everyone in the audience does too, you're very, God bless you for doing that. I really respect you for that. And before we finish, and I thank you for coming on my show as a guest. And before we finish, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter, but followed by my name, Mira Terada. And people can find our work on our website. It's fontfbr.ru. I will spell it. It's F as a fox, O as an open, N as a Nancy, D as a dog, F as a fox, B as a box, R as a rabbit, .ru. And in the top right corner, you would see the language change. You can read it in Russian, English, German, and French. So whoever is interested in our work can find all our articles and investigations and interviews and many other interesting information there.
Well, you heard it first, ladies and gentlemen. Please go and follow Mira on Twitter. Go support her organization. Very good organization. They're doing, battling human trafficking. It's a very big problem in the world. It needs to stop. It's becoming one of the biggest problems in the world. So like I said, go and follow her on Twitter. Go and subscribe and go check out the work she does for the Foundation to Battle Injustice. Absolutely brilliant organization. And yeah, give her all the respect she deserves. Give her a like, give her a follow, follow her work. Apart from that, I just want to say to her, thank you for joining my show, Mira. It's a pleasure to have you on. And I just want to say to everybody, thank you for joining the Welsh Republic Podcast, episode 156. It was an absolute honor to do this show. God bless you all. Free Palestine. God bless Russia. God bless China. And God bless humanity. Take care, everybody. Have a nice day. Stay safe. Bye.